And now, a special Meet the Press Senate debate. Today, Colorado.
We're back, and with us to kick off our 2008 Senate debate series, the candidates from one of the most closely watched Senate races this year. It's the battleground state of Colorado, and the issues are what are commanding all of our attention. Former Congressman Bob Schaffer on your left there, and Congressman Mark Udall. Gentlemen, welcome. Let's go right to it. First of all, let me begin with you. I'm going to call you Congressman, even though you're out of office now, because that's the appropriate protocol. You said you didn't like anything about this bailout bill that was proposed last week. You described it as the dead hand of government making things worse. Based on what you're hearing so far, do you like the general outlines of the program that we'll probably hear about later today?
Well, that's the operative approach to the issue, is that the details will come out later today, apparently. No, there's nothing to like about the notion that there is a $700 billion fix needed with respect to a collapse on Wall Street. $700 billion being raised by a government that does not have it essentially means the Federal Reserve has to turn on the printing press in order to create the money. That's about $10,000 to $11,000 per American household. It's essentially a tax. So you're correct. What I said previously that you referenced stands. There is nothing to like about the bailout. It is necessary, I think, however, for the Congress to move forward in a way that reacts to the problems that Congress helped create and, in fact, led the way to creating. But to suggest that there's something to celebrate is exactly wrong.
Congressman Chris Cox, who is the chairman of the SEC, right, said it's not the dead hand of government. In effect, he said it's the blind eye of government. Right. And he now apologizes for regulations as they were deregulated, not working. He said that we went voluntarily, and Wall Street just didn't respond to that. That put us in the jam that we're in now. Right. And all of that grew out of a Republican culture, beginning with Ronald Reagan. So isn't it time to reinstitute closer regulation of Wall Street and these financial institutions, especially in an era of warp speed and electronic trading, which is very hard to keep track of?
In some areas, perhaps, with respect to transparency, with respect to certain areas of accountability, of course, but not in a way that slows or constrains the ability of the economy to grow. You know, that you can trace back, however, to 2005 with the legislation that was considered in 2005 and again in 2007 with respect to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, where there were attempts, actually led by Republicans in the Congress, to put more controls and to put more restraints on Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Unfortunately, the vast majority of, including Congressman Udall, opposed those restrictions and those accountability provisions. And that, probably more than anything else, led to the immediate excesses that you began to see over the last 3 years.
Congressman Udall, we've been checking the statistics in the Denver area. I'm quite familiar with it. In the second quarter of 2008, 1 in every 95 households in the Denver area were in foreclosure. The United States average was 1 in 171. Colorado ranked 5th in the nation statewide. A lot of that was a result of speculation for profit, people going in and hoping to make a quick buck and turn it around. Why should other taxpayers across the country have to now bail out those Colorado mortgage buyers who just did the irresponsible thing?
Tom, people are mad. People are upset. My calls are mixed between people who say no and people who say hell no. This is a real crisis that we face. I would tell you that I think there's some principles that we have to pursue as we move towards a rescue plan, not for Wall Street. This shouldn't be welfare for CEOs, but for Main Street. And that has to include no blank check, oversight, no golden parachutes. The taxpayers have to be at the front of the line. There has to be a return on their investment, if you will. I want to correct the record. Congressman Schaffer just suggested that in 2005 I didn't support reform efforts for the GSEs, Freddie and Fannie. I did, in fact, worked with Republicans to make those changes at that time. So I've been on the leading edge of saying that this is a real problem. I would tell you what we can't do, though, and that's return to the policies that Congressman Schaffer supported and supports today, which are tax breaks for CEOs, tax breaks for companies that offshore jobs, tax breaks for the wealthiest among us, like the oil companies and other large corporate interests.
That's not true, Mark.
That's not going to get us to health in our financial system. the lack of regulation. Congressman Schaffer's right. We do need more regulation, but he supported a lessening of that regulation.
That's not true either, Mark. Sorry.
And I think that's where we need to travel. Those are the kind of policies we need to put in place, and hopefully this legislation will meet that standard.
Mark, you voted against several amendments. You voted against the Leach Amendment, which would have, and this is in 2005, on this reform bill that you referenced, that would have established minimum capital levels for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. You voted no, and you were in the minority. You voted against requiring Fannie and Freddie to sell, acquire assets or liabilities if an asset or liability is deemed to be potential systemic risk to the housing market. You voted no on that. You voted no on an amendment that would have eliminated the ability of Fannie or Freddie Mae or Freddie Mac to borrow from the U.S. Treasury.
The overall package in 2005,
you voted in 2007.
The point is where we are because
Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac's credit limits.
Where we are because of the policies of
Mark, Undersecretary Robert Steele said he issued a statement on your vote that the House had, quote, significantly weakened a new regulator for the firms. He said, as a result of these amendments adopted on the floor, the Department does not believe this bill adequately guards our financial system with the necessary oversight. You voted for that, Mark, and that is something you're responsible for, and along with the rest of the Democrats in Congress who were in charge in 2007, and that leads directly to the crisis we're seeing on Wall Street today that is going to cost every Colorado family at least $10,000 to $11,000 per household as a function of a $700 billion bailout with money that does not exist that you guys need to go print.
I'll let you finish. This is the result of years and years of Republican leadership or lack thereof in Washington. Tax cuts for those who don't need it. Tax cuts for the oil companies.
I've been out of Congress for 6 years.
The Bush economic plan.
You've been there for 10. Tell us what you've done.
Let me finish.
Finish by telling us what you've done.
This is in 10 years of the Bush administration.
You've been there for 10 years.
Of the Reagan Revolution coming to its logical conclusion, which is
those of us who have been back home in the private sector working hard for the last 6 years are sick and tired of these kinds of votes that make all of the rest of us pay. It is a national tragedy, and there is nothing to like about it.
But, Congressman, it's been your party, in all fairness, that has been in charge for the most part for the last 8 years, and it has run up record deficits of now $500 billion. The fact of the matter is that the economy in the next year probably won't grow very much at all. The man who's the head of your ticket, John McCain, says that he can balance the budget with spending cuts alone. He talks about earmarks. They represent only about $18 billion. Right. Based on your own experience during this campaign, aren't the American people looking for more candor than that? Is that a promise that he can fulfill in your judgment?
They're looking for candor, and and Senator McCain is certainly providing. You're correct that under Republican leadership, deficits grew, and I think it has to mainly do as a function of war. However, I was in Congress for 6 years. I was there I got elected in 1996. I left in 2002. During those years, we did balance the budget. In fact, we did it 4 years ahead of schedule. We did it by trimming the rate of growth in spending and specific cuts, but more than anything else, the tax cuts, which applied to middle-class households and families that we helped push forward. Mark Udall likes to talk about it as tax cuts for the rich, for all of the homeowners at home who are middle-class people. Congratulations, you're rich under that definition. But we actually grew the economy faster than had been projected. We actually increased the amount of revenue coming to the federal government while we were slowing down the rate of growth and spending and reforming on the regulatory side, welfare reform, for example, other reforms within the Congress that helped unleash the productivity of the economy. We did balance the budget 4 years ahead of schedule, and that allowed us to start talking about surpluses to help add years to the solvency of Social Security and Medicare. So I was there during the times when we actually delivered on what we promised,
that was then,
and we need to do that again.
That was then, and now is now.
Good. Well, listen, I'm not running. I'm not running. I'm not going to carry the water for every bad decision Republicans and Democrats have made. Look, there's lots of people in Washington who can't make a prudent decision or make a tough call on what's really a priority for the country. But when I was there, I did. I've been back in the private sector paying these taxes and generating revenue for the country and helping to create jobs. And when I come back to Washington, I'll take all that experience with me and do it in a way that, Mark, you never did in the 10 years you've been there.
That's a great narrative, but go back to 2002. You cast votes for a war. You cast votes for tax cuts for the wealthy.
You proposed a preliminary declaration of war,
Bob,
Mark.
I'm letting you get your points in. Let me get my points in.
Be accurate, though.
You need to be accurate. You cast votes against an energy policy set of proposals that would have us much closer to being energy independent today.
I cast votes in favor of energy policy.
Let me finish. For you to sit here and suggest that somehow you're immune from any of the criticism or any of the blame for the straits we find ourselves in today is laughable. The policies of the Bush
Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac didn't crash
Bob,
6 years ago. They crashed this year, where you were in charge.
The policies you support have led to the day that we are experiencing today.
Absolutely not
the
true.
Financial system meltdown, middle class being choked, no energy policy, a war with no end, CEOs getting welfare. This is a direct example and the direct result of what you did and what you supported
that we
when
debate
you were in
all of
Congress.
these topics.
We have been debating these topics
in an
all over the
open
state
format.
of Colorado.
You rejected the opportunity to debate these issues.
Today. This is our 9th debate, Bob.
And it's not going particularly well for you because you can't rely on facts in order to support your conclusion.
Congressman Udall, let me
I can't
see if I can move it along into some other areas.